Welcome back to the Hey Mom podcast. My name is Megan and I go by Wool and Cottonwoods here on YouTube as well as on Instagram. And I'm glad to have you back for episode 3. So I'm trying to do this every week. We'll see how it goes. Last week I had so much that I talked about, and if you haven't seen that episode yet, go ahead and find it on my YouTube page. But I talked about so much. And so I think if I do it on a weekly basis, there will be kind of a little bit less to talk about. And so it'll move a little bit quicker and hopefully it'll be a little bit more accessible for people. The Grocery Girls, they always say, oh, well, people can watch it in chunks, and I watch Grocery Girls in chunks, or I watch it all in one go. So you do what works for you. I'm going to try this out. Hopefully it will be a little bit more accessible for recording and uploading and things like that too, if I do it in shorter sections. So we're going to try that today and see how it goes, but welcome. And I'm excited to have you all here. I am in my basement office knitting room space. Today it is Friday, June the 2nd. And we had a bit of a cool, rainy, it didn't rain a bunch. Live in a pretty semi-arid, deserty climate, so we don't get a lot of rain. But it was a beautiful day yesterday to kind of just cozy up and knit, and so that's what I did. And I figured I really liked it last week with my phone in the mode that it's in and the natural light coming in. I figured yesterday wouldn't be the best day to record, so here I am. It's 1:34 Friday afternoon. I don't have a chiropractor's appointment today, so hopefully I can get it done in one bout. So I'm excited to be here, and I'm going to share with you all of my knits as well as a little bit of my gardening and an extension. This is my way of feeling like I'm sharing it with my mom. So, hey mom, here's what I've been working on. Hey everybody else who's here. Here's what I've been working on. Welcome to the chaos. So, like I said, I am getting things going so that I'm going to try and do it every week. I'm going to aim to maybe record it Thursday afternoons and upload it for like Thursday evening or Friday morning. We're going to see how that works. Here I am though, Friday and recording, so hopefully it'll be up this evening. To be determined. So we'll see what happens. Last week, my episode came up on Saturday, so that's just how it goes. What I'm wearing today, I'm going to put my notes aside because I keep playing with it, and I'm sure that's distracting. What I'm wearing today is my finished object Ranunculus. I've got a few little wet spots. I took a drink of water, and I've got my nice big Nalgene and took a drink of water, and it just went everywhere. And like I talked about this last week, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit this week, this is a cotton cashmere blend, and we know that cotton is really good at just sucking up the water, and so that's what it did. And so you'll have to pardon the wet spots. Hopefully they'll dry over the course of the episode. Now, I did block this. I wasn't blocked in last week's episode, and I'm really happy with the fit. It's very similar to what it was pre-blocking, so that's nice. And it was interesting, like just blocking cotton. I didn't really know what to expect. But yeah, it was stiff, it was thick, it took a little while for it to dry. Last week I was talking about putting it in the dryer. I'm glad I didn't. And we'll talk about that more in a little bit as well. So that is my Ranunculus. I'm really happy with how it worked up. If you want the details, you can go ahead and check out last week's episode because I go into lots of depth about my whole entire making process. And I'm just wearing it over a little jumpsuit, playsuit, romper thing, but it's got long legs. My brother-in-law, Jeffrey's brother, is graduating university today, and so we're going over to his parents for dinner, and so I wanted to be dressed a little bit nicer, but also incorporate some of my knits. So hopefully this won't be too warm. We will see. Nice thing about having it over top of a romper is that if it does get too warm, it's totally appropriate for me just to whip it off, and then I've got a nice top underneath because it's just a romper, so it's all one piece anyways. That's enough talk about rompers. If you are enjoying the podcast at any point, feel free to subscribe. I was pretty blown away by the first episode and how many of you did subscribe and how many of you came back for the second episode. And so if you are enjoying this, just subscribe down below. And people always say ring the bell. Do what you're gonna do. And one other thing I talked about in last week's episode is I can't take off ads until I'm eligible to make money. And we'll see, I might not take them off when that's the point because, you know, funding the habit. But what I will say is that I have YouTube Premium and I love it. And I know, like, I don't know this from firsthand experience, but I've heard people say that YouTube Premium, when a YouTube Premium subscriber watches a video, it actually supports the maker more than when you have like just watch through the ads. So that's something to consider, but I have YouTube Premium. I love it. Got Jeffrey on it because it's a little family thing with my brother, and got Jeffrey on it, and he was like, oh my gosh, you can't go back. I'm like, no, you can't. So if it's in your budget, feel free to go ahead and do that. Or I hate being advertised to, so that's a priority for me, is not having to be exposed to undue advertisement. And so yeah, feel free to subscribe or get YouTube Premium or do what you do and do what makes you happy and do what makes the world a better place. I'm not too fussed either way. So anyways, that felt like a bit of a spiel. So I'm gonna stop that and talk to you about this week. So this week's been pretty good. I've been struggling a lot with trying to get out of the house and kind of get up and moving in the mornings. I love sort of sitting down in the morning in my robe, drink a cup of coffee, sit and knit for an hour or two, watch some YouTube, but I find it's really hard to then stop that and move on. So this week I'm trying to be a little bit more intentional with my knitting time rather than it just being kind of my default. So it went okay this week. I'm gonna see how it goes next week. Next week I'm gonna aim to try and get out for a little bit of physical activity, be it a walk or a bike ride every morning. And so just getting up, making my coffee and leaving, and not picking up my knitting and not staying in my bathrobe and like, I don't need to look cute, I just need to get up and go. So I'm gonna try that out next week and see how it goes. It's hard. And you know what? I struggle with it every summer as a teacher. And I knew I would struggle with it in leave. And so just dealing with the grief of mom as well as the time is an interesting combination, but I'm trying to work my way through that. But I didn't get up and kind of get moving every day this week because I actually focused a lot on my garden this week, which was lovely. And I went to the garden shop and I picked up vegetables. I had planted my flowers a week or two ago, about 2 weeks ago now, I think. And it's been a lot of fun. So I will include some video at the very end of the podcast today with all of the details of my garden. I'm just going to take you kind of Taylor Owen style on a little walk through my garden, and you can see. And if you're interested as well, follow me on Instagram. I'm Cottonwoods on Instagram. And I post a lot in my stories about kind of what I'm doing, and I posted a lot about planting my vegetable garden, and that was really fun. So feel free to follow me over there and go ahead and watch what's happening at the end of this video. So that is kind of everything what's been going on. I talked about my sweater and what I'm wearing. I said subscribe. I said that I'm going to aim for podcast every Thursday or Friday. We'll see what happens. Maybe I need to record on Wednesday and then that can actually happen. Editing is a lot more work. And I've edited lots of videos in the past, so I'm very comfortable with it, but it's just a lot of work. So we will see. So let's jump into finished objects. I have two finished objects this week, not two. The first I will show you, I had just cast this on last Friday, and it's not entirely finished. I haven't actually done the finishing work for it, but it's off the needles. So this is my old port hat, and this was for the Andrea Mowry Memorial Day hat knit along. I'll get my face out of the way so you can actually see it. And so you can see there's this extra little bit down here. That's a brim liner that actually pops up inside of the hat. And so the hat itself ends up looking like this. And you're gonna see it's not blocked and it's not actually finished. I haven't whip stitched this down yet. The two yarns that I used are Rowan Alpaca Classic, Alpaca Cotton, something like that. Rowan Alpaca something or other. And that's the fluffy pink color. And I like it. It's a little bit scratchy and I'm not a huge fan of the cotton because it has a cotton core. We'll see if it'll actually focus on that. Yeah, so because it has a cotton core, it's very not stretchy. And like, Surrey alpaca isn't stretchy, but this is just a little bit tougher to work with. And then the beautiful oatmeal color is by Sonder Yarn Co. And it's leftovers that I had of the Sonder DK in the color Offline. And this hat is so squishy and it smells so sheepy. Actually, it's been sitting on top of my essential oils tub, so it smells like essential oils right now, but it's lovely. I just don't know if I'm gonna get a lot of wear out of it. I think the ear flaps are a cute idea, but I'm not crazy about how it looks actually in practicality. I'll finish the hat and try it on next week and show you. But this might go in a donation bin or a gift bin, or I know Kevin and Ray from Needles at the Ready, they do a thing like at parties where when they have people over at Christmas and they just put out a big bin of hats that they've made. And so maybe I'll do that and just leave it open for my friends and they can take a hat if they so wish. And you know what? That's okay. I love knitting it. That was the fun of it. The brioche was great. I talked last week that I thought I was gonna run out of my alpaca, and I did. But I cut the hat length a little bit short, just by like maybe ½ an inch before I started the decreases. And then you can see where I ran out of the yarn. So you can see in my contrast color, there is the pink, and whoop, whoop. Stop focusing on my face. There's the pink, and then that's where I ran out. So I just did the last few decrease rounds with the Sonder DK as single color brioche, and it was fine. I do like double color brioche because it's really easy to keep track of things, which is handy. Like you know what stitch you're doing. And I'm sure I'd be able to manage single color brioche just fine. I've done a lot of fisherman's rib and it's very similar. So anyways, I just didn't want to go out and buy another skein of it, especially when I don't think it's going to be something that I'm going to use in the future. It was just in stash. I tried it for another project and it didn't work out. So I was happy to use it up, and also happy to not buy another ball. And like, who's going to notice that the pink doesn't go all the way to the top? If it was inside out, you definitely notice. The inside out of this hat looks cool, I think. Inside out, you totally notice. But nice thing is with the brim liner, it's never gonna be inside out. So that is my old port hat by Andrea Mowry. We'll see. I don't think I'm gonna make the pattern again, and that's okay. Last week in the episode, I showed like a second color option, and I'll tell you more about that in today's episode. But before that, I have a second finished object. So I knit this entire thing. I think last week's episode, I had maybe most of the brim done. Maybe I had started the brioche. I don't remember. But I just started this, and I had my yoke done on the Dahlia by, I did this last week. Going to be linked down below. Lene. That's probably very wrong, and I'm so sorry. By a wonderful designer, and she has a lot of wonderful designs, especially for kids. And she does a lot of kind of similar to what Petite Knit does, knitting things from baby to big. So I'm just gonna put this up here to show you. So this is the Dahlia, and it's adorable. you can see that really beautiful lace, and this has just come off the blocking mats. It was still damp because this is a superwash, 100% superwash DK weight, and so it was still damp. So I've got this set up upstairs where I've got these mesh drying racks. They're from Oxo Good Grips, but Coco Knits has a similar thing. But it's just mesh so it can dry from both the top and the bottom. And then I actually put Jeffrey's fan that he uses when he's cycling, like when he's on his indoor trainer. And so I put that next to it and just blow the fan onto the knit, and it does an incredible job. So this is still quite damp, about 2.5 hours ago. And I popped it on there, and I'd say it's like 98% dry. So yeah, I'm very, very happy with how this turned out. And the little one's birthday is on Sunday, so my job is going to be to go and get some buttons. I think I'm going to do that tomorrow afternoon and put the buttons on there. I'm very happy with the instructions in the pattern. They are very clear. So it's circular yoke and increases throughout the yoke within this lace design. And then kind of similar to the Ranunculus, once you're done the lace and once you're done the texture, then you do a few raglan increases. I was much better at this last week. Oh, there we go. If I peek over on this side, it doesn't notice me as much. So I've got a few raglan increases just to get it to the right chest size, because this is a pattern. This particular one includes a cardigan, a t-shirt, as well as a dress. And they all have their own little details. So the t-shirt has a little keyhole and loop at the top, which is adorable and totally darling. The dress is really nice. It has a nice folded hem, so you don't have ribbing at the bottom of the dress. And it includes sizes from 1-year-old to 8 years old. So I made the 6-year-old size in the cardigan, clearly. And this is for my little niece who is turning 6. Well, good friend's daughter. And she's turning 6, and she's very knit-worthy, and she loves pink. So the yarn, I've talked about it before. It's called Truly Outrageous. And let me see, yeah. It's called Truly Outrageous. It's by Lillian Pine, and she's a dyer here in Alberta. She dyes out of Calgary, and I love her yarns. You're gonna see them a lot in my episodes. She does really good. She does neons, and she does like neon neutrals, which I like the pops of color. So in my shawl, just right behind, you'll see that like bright coral. That's a Lillian Pine. So I just like using it as a nice little pop of color. So Truly Outrageous is the color, and I had bought this. She was discontinuing the colorway. And actually I was talking to her this week, and she's like, I'm completely out of that color. So I had 2 skeins because I bought it on sale when she was discontinuing it. And so I had 2 skeins. This is the Birch DK, has about 280 yards per skein. Maybe that's meters. No, it's yards because that's the bigger number. 280 yards per skein. The skeins are about 115 grams. My skeins were actually a little bit closer to 125 grams. And I did run short on yarn. So I did the body. Well, I was working on the body after the split for sleeves. I did it for a few inches, and I incorporated the second skein in down here. And I just did a few rows because of course it's a cardigan, so you're going back and forth. So I did a few rows of kind of, I went back and forth with one skein and then back and forth with the other. I think it ended up working out to a total of like 10 rows. Let's see if you can see it in here. Yeah, you can. So there's the first one. There's the second one. So I incorporated the first one here. Boop. Did back and forth for all of these rows, and then that's where I ended the first skein of yarn. So I did that, and then I was realizing that I might not have enough yarn, and I was weighing it, and I was weighing how much 1 inch of stockinette would get me, and I was at about 7 inches of stockinette. The pattern calls for 9.5. And at that point, I think I was at like 90 grams. And it was taking me about 12 grams per inch. It's like, well, I want her to be able to grow with this sweater. So I want to make full length sleeves. No matter what, I'm making full length sleeves because I don't want her sleeves to just fit her here. And then in a year when she gets super long, as children do, then they're going to be up here. And then like, they're not going to, you know, not going to be able to really wear properly. So I wanted to make full length sleeves. So I put the body on hold, snapped the yarn, and went ahead and worked on the sleeves. You'll see there is a little variation from the first skein and then the line as to where I picked up for the sleeves. But I think in the overall sweater, nobody's noticing. Yeah, it's really clear on this sleeve and specifically on the front. On the back, it's not so evident, but that's just how hand-dyed yarn goes. That's the beauty of hand-dyed yarn. And so I went ahead and I did one sleeve and it took 40 grams. So I'm like, well, I'm glad I went ahead and did the sleeves. Then I did the second sleeve and went back, put the body on, and tried to make some decisions. And it was very decision fatiguing. Sorry, the fan just turned on. You can probably hear it. I noticed that last week when I was editing. It was very decision fatiguing because I was running out of yarn. So I was like, okay, I have one more skein, but it's a slightly different base. And actually in last week's video, you saw it, and it's a non-superwash base. So non-superwash takes the color very differently than superwash does. I was like, maybe I can blend it into the body and extend the length. And I looked through every single project page because I wanted to see the length on actual like 6-year-olds. Because I was like, 9 inches of stockinette, that's a long body. Like 9 inches of stockinette for me to then do an inch of ribbing is like a crop, but not insanely cropped. So I was kind of going back and forth with that. And I was like, okay, well, let me look and see. And as I showed you this week or last week, this is superwash and this is non-superwash. It's the same colorway, but I don't think it would have blended well. And then the washing instructions would have to be a little bit finickier. And I was not okay with that. So I'll probably use this actually and make her probably a little hat. And maybe if I can find a pattern that doesn't use too much yarn, then I can actually make her and her mom a hat. Her mom would hate the pink, but would wear it because she loves her daughter and she's adorable. And actually there's a really good shot of Lily and Pine. I love her ball bands on this nice like linen-y texture paper. Anywho, I digress. So this is how the sweater ended up. And so I just ended up making it cropped. So it called for increases before the ribbing. I didn't do that. And that's probably just because in the pattern, it calls for such a longer body that you would need a little bit of a flare out to kind of accommodate for wearing it over a dress or over the hips. And so I didn't, I just, I ended up needing to decrease 1 stitch to make it the right kind of stitch count. I went ahead, I did the bottom bands. Clementine says hello. I did the bottom bands and was measuring every single round. I went ahead and picked up the button bands and was measuring every single row. Clementine says hello. Oh yes, sweet girl. We'll see if she sits down. And so I went ahead and measured with my scale every single row and ended up having enough to do a normal button band. And actually one of my goals, as I was looking through every single project page, a lot of people commented that the neckline stretches out massively. And the neckline it did have, when you cast it on, it had like 90 something stitches for a 6-year-old in DK weight. So, and I was noticing that it was stretching out like quite a bit. And so just to mitigate that, I had just enough yarn at the end, and I'll show you how much yarn I ended up with, which is kind of hilarious. But just at the very end, I actually ended up picking up and doing an applied I-cord all around the collar. And so I really love the line that created. I was like, oh, is it gonna look off that I don't also have it on the button band and on the cuffs and on the hem? And no, I think it looks clean. I think it looks classy. I think it's just a really nice addition. And it has the benefit, it still has stretch because it's an I-cord, but it just has a little bit less stretch. So it's not gonna super bag out on her. I was noticing in some of the like pictures, it was going like all the way like here. That was Clementine just jumping onto the floor. She's fine, just rocks the camera a little. So yeah, I was just noticing the neckline was bagging way out. So I really love the addition of the I-cord, and that was just me just ad-libbing. And so if you've got a neckline, like I have this problem on some of my sweaters. Doop, doop. I have this problem on some of my sweaters that the neckline does bag out. And I know like Tracy of the Grocery Girls, she ended up like trying to put in a crochet chain, and that can help. But then it just makes it really inflexible. And then she tried like ripping it out, which I've totally considered, in particular with my pink velvet, which is the sweater I wore in the first episode. And I think I might try an I-cord, which is funny because I talked about my fail with my rocket tee last week because the I-cord. And so this has me wondering, maybe I just need to go back and pick up the I-cord and do it again in my rocket tee. So anyways, that's, I think, all I want to mention. I will get some finished object pictures and make sure her mom is okay with it, and maybe get some pictures of the little lady wearing it herself and share those, and we shall see. I think I'm just gonna do some cute little buttons. I'm gonna see if I can find maybe some flowers or maybe some butterflies. I think all of the above would be super cute. So that is my Dahlia cardigan. Just, I can't get over the lace. It's so stinking cute. So that is that. And that's it for finished objects, but I'm pretty happy with that. The Dahlia actually took a lot more than I thought. And brioche. Forget how much brioche takes. I've done an entire, well, half of a shawl in brioche. But yeah, I just forget how time consuming it is because you have to do every single round twice. But speaking of brioche, works in progress. So last week I showed you these 3 yarns. And I've got right here, this is the Elm Sport by Lily & Pine, which is her 100% BFL. 100% BFL non-superwash sport weight. I use it as a DK weight, and this is in the color Erin's Blue. Beautiful, like just beautiful, beautiful kind of robin's eggy blue color. Stunning. And then right here we've got the Rowan Kidsilk Mohair, and this is in the colorway Pearl. And then right here, and I'm just gonna move these that the sun can kind of get on it a little bit. Oh, sorry, I just moved my camera. This is West Coast Yarn Co. This is her 85 Merino 15 fingering superwash base. And this colorway is called Dried Bouquet. And I love, just like the burgundy flecks. The burgundy and the gold just get me. And this yarn has been many a things. I initially tried making it into a Musselburgh because I loved the colorway so much. And the Musselburgh actually just took away, you couldn't see the true beauty of the colorway. So I ended up ripping it out, and then I made a So Faded sweater. So Faded sweater with this and a bunch of other West Coast Yarn Co. yarns. And then I had a decent, like, I think it's like 25-30 grams left. So I'm using these 3 yarns. Last week I thought I was going to use them to make a second Old Port hat, but after my experience knitting the first one, I'm not doing that again. So instead, because I love the brioche, and I love the effect of the brioche. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a little Harlow hat mashup. And so I'm using the numbers from the Old Port hat because that has the right like weight and the right stitch counts so that I don't have to mess around with gauge. And I'm using the needle size from the Old Port hat, but I'm using the Harlow hat pattern. And so it's Andrea Mowry's just brioche beanie pattern. And I love it. I think it's super cute. I've got some yarn set aside to do some more that are just leftovers from some sweater projects. Sorry, I got fluff. And it's also allergy season. And so I'm using these yarns to make a little mashup. And you'll see I'm using the Erin's Blue Birch Sport, Elm Sport as my main color. And so there's no fluff in that one. But then on the reverse side, I'm using the Dried Bouquet and the Pearl Mohair together. And I'm loving the fabric this is making. I love the two-sided nature of it. I love the squish. And I think just as a hat, it's just gonna be really nice. So it's not gonna match anything else I have, but I don't really care. And I think it's neutral enough to kind of go with anything. And you know what? It's just color. Color goes with color, so who cares? I did do the, I'm gonna kind of hide. Sorry, this is asking a lot of my phone. So I did do the, you know what, let's try this. There we go. I did do the 2-color tubular cast on, and having done tubular cast on before, I actually really liked this method because it was easier to keep track of your knits and pearls. And that's just because your knits are in one color and your pearls are in the other. And so it's really cute. There's one spot where I kind of messed it up a little bit. It got a little twisted. It's right there. But come on. Once the hat's knit, who's gonna care? Not me. I'm probably not gonna be able to find it again. So yeah, just started on this yesterday and it's working up quite nicely. So that is my Harlow Old Port mashup hat, and I'm really happy with it. And I don't feel so bad about mashing up the two patterns because I own them both. So I don't feel like I'm stealing any kind of intellectual property. I'm not about to sell the pattern. I'm not about to write up the pattern. So I'm happy to use what I've purchased and make my project my project. So that's how it goes. That is my work in progress one. Oh, I don't know if I actually showed this last time, but this is my, that crafty fox. That crafty little fox. This is her project bag, and I use this one constantly. I love the size of it. This is her Queen Anne wristlet, I think is what she calls it, and just the adorable ruffle goes all the way around, or it doesn't go all the way around, but she's got this nice little feature fabric, and then the waxed canvas does go all the way around. So it's got nice structure, but you can still like squish it down, which I find is tricky to do with a drawstring because it already is sort of squished down. And then the zipper is a nice little contrast, and then it's got some nice bright blue on the inside. I just love how she matches up fabrics. So she's in the United States, and I'd really suggest buying her bags if you come across them. So that is my Harlow mashup hat, which is what I'm calling it. And then I finished my Dahlia. I got it blocking, and I was in such an eager race to finish that I just wanted to get it done, and I didn't swatch. Usually I will swatch for my next project when I'm finishing the other one up, so that I'm just like, boom, bind off, block, weave in my ends. I love weaving in ends, actually, oddly enough. And then on to my next project. Couldn't quite do that with this project. I don't know. I was having some decision fatigue, and you saw my plans video last week. So I actually ended up knitting up 2 swatches. So this is the Berroco remix that I showed you last week. And this is a garter stitch swatch. This is on 4mm needles, and it's nice. I like it, but I don't think it's gonna be a summer top. I think it's gonna be like a fall and spring top, and something I can really easily wear to work. This is a swatch for the Soho top by Kadri, And I love the pattern. I still have full intention of making it, but this thick of a fabric is not really something that I want to work on right now. Like, this kind of just feels like a dish towel. Well, it's garter stitch, so it is kind of dish towel material. But yeah, I'm gonna make this, but I'm not gonna make it right now. So I'm just gonna set that aside. I haven't blocked it yet. I don't think it's gonna change much with blocking. The Berroco Remix is a synthetic and natural fiber kind of combo. There's some acrylic, there's some cotton, there's some linen, there's some viscose. I'm sure there's some other stuff in there. It's a nice blend. It was nice to work with, but like I said, just not right now. So I'm setting this aside. And then, so that's what I thought I was gonna work on next. I was pretty sold on it, but I didn't like the swatch. I like the swatch, but it's not what I want to make right now. So instead I did up this swatch. And this swatch is using the Rowan Cotton Cashmere in this nice smoky lavender purple color. Oh, actually, yeah. It's nice smoky lavender purple color. And then down here, we've got the ecru color. And this is the same fiber that I used in my Ranunculus. And I like it, but it's 85% cotton and it feels like it's 85% cotton. There's not a lot of give. The cashmere is nice. It does soften it up quite a bit. But it's still cotton. And so I wanted to try just running this through. I didn't put it through the wash, but I did put it through the dryer because I just wanted to see what happened. And it shrunk a little bit, as you would expect from 85% cotton. It didn't felt, which is reassuring. You could see kind of like the ends that I cut off. They're sort of a little worse for wear. But I'm glad that I tried that because I am not going to run my finished objects through the wash because I don't like how that worked up. And I loved the ecru in the purple when I was knitting it. And I liked how it looked before I was blocking it. And then I put it through the wash and I'm like, I don't love it. And I don't know why. The color didn't bleed, but I'm not loving the white stripe. So I did cast this on, even though I'm not 100% sold on it, but I think it's gonna be good. I think I would really like to try making this pattern in the tin, no, not the tin Lene, just in the normal Lene by Sadness Garn. Yeah. But that is going to be a project for next summer. I'm trying really, really hard not to buy yarns unless I'm about to cast it on, unless I'm about to swatch. I clearly have more than enough yarns. I went through my summer knitting plans with you last video. I do want to swatch and knit what I'm excited about, but I also want to use what I have. And that's partially a budgetary constraint, but that's also partially you know, I want to teach myself to enjoy what I have. And like I said last week, my big mantra right now is I'm allowed to like things and I'm allowed to want things and I'm allowed to not allow myself to get them. And that's just because we live in a world of plenty. And I'm so grateful. I live in a town of plenty and I live such a lifestyle of plenty. And so I need to be happy with that. And I'm going to try to not necessarily buy yarn. I do have a friend on Instagram and what she is doing is she is doing quarterly. And I believe it's Cocoa Pearl. I will link her down below. She's wonderful. And she's doing a system kind of similar to the Knitty Stew. And so she's got all of these yarn clauses for when she can purchase yarn, but what she's doing is she's allowing herself a quarterly yarn purchase. And so I really am liking that. And there's some Sonder yarn that I would really love. And so I'm going to see if I can hold out until the end of the summer because I think they'll have a sale in August. They had a sale in August last year. So I'm going to hold out and see what happens. because I would love some Sonder yarn. And there are some beautiful Sonder yarn sweaters that I would adore to make. And so I'm gonna stretch the muscle of I'm allowed to want things and not get them. That's my little blurb. Back to what I'm knitting. So, oh, sorry. This is how much yarn I had left after the Dahlia top, or the Dahlia cardigan. It's 3 grams. I won yarn chicken. So here's what I'm knitting with the Rowan cotton cashmere. And this is my Tolsta top. And we are on a tiny circular needle, so you cannot see anything. I'm really enjoying how this is working up. It's at a bit of a tighter gauge. The Ranunculus was worked on a 6mm. This is being worked on a 5mm. Still pretty happy with it. I think it's gonna be more of a shoulder season garment. We live in the 30s, like in the high 20s, low 30s here in the summer. And so I think it's gonna be a shoulder season garment. But I'm really happy with how it's working up. It's gonna be super fast. I want it to be fast because I don't know, I'm just like, I'm excited for the finished product. I'm not excited about the knitting of it. So I guess I'm knitting this for product and not for process. But I'm going to knit this while I do a few other swatches. So I'm going to swatch for a few of the projects that I talked about last week. And you know what? If I end up wanting to knit a bulky weight winter sweater, then that's what I'll do too. So that is the beginning of my Tolsta tee. I just cast this on yesterday. So I am going to do stripes, but I'm not going to do it with the white that I showed you. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and use that Berroco remix in this charcoal color. And I think that's going to make a nice contrast. The remix is a little bit heavier, but it's going to be 2 stripes. So I'm going to knit for 4 inches after the collar. And then I'm going to do 2 stripes in this, 6 stripes in this, 2, 6, 2, 6. So that's the ratio that I did here. And I like the ratio. The ratio is not the problem. It was just the white. It was feeling a little too, I don't know, a little too pastel-y for me. I'm not a big pastels person. So yeah, purple and white, purple and charcoal. I think I'm gonna really like the purple and charcoal. So I'm excited about that. So that's my Tolsta. I'm sure I'll have much more to show you next week on that. And hopefully next week I'll have some swatches as well. So that's about it. I haven't worked on my sock at all. Because there hasn't, you know, when I'm at work, I'll work on my sock during recess or when I'm supervising book exchange. I'll work on my socks if I've got appointments and I'm waiting or something like that, but that just hasn't really happened lately, so I haven't, or I've taken my hats. So it hasn't really happened, so I haven't really done a bunch of knitting that way. But, you know, 2 finished objects and 2 new cast-ons. Both of those new cast-ons happened yesterday, so I was busy yesterday. It was good. Like I said, it was gray, it was kind of cold, it was like 10 degrees. It was a very nice sit and knit and cast on day. So let me check my notes, but I do believe that is it. Yeah, that's it. I'm really excited about the kind of what's gonna come after the Tolsta tee. I love the pattern. I'm excited about the pattern. I definitely think I'm gonna make more. Like I said, I think I'll make more for next year. But I'm thinking the short tee that I was talking to you about, or the short top by Anne Vencel that I was looking at last week. I think I'm going to swatch for that this week. I think I'm also going to swatch for the Saltier crop by Samantha Guerin. And so I'm excited about all of those things. And, you know, too, if I just need to slow down my knitting, which I think is going to happen next week with not kind of letting myself knit in the mornings, just going straight into some physical activity and then letting myself slow down, I think that'll be good. But there might be a little bit less knitting, and that's okay. So I'm going to say goodbye for now. There were no acquisitions this week. I'm trying really hard not to spend money. And so nothing new that way. And I'm gonna send you into my garden, and let's go and take a look through the garden and see what I've been working on out there, because it's really exciting. So I will say goodbye for now. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you follow me on Instagram, and I will see you next time. Bye. Hi, this is my beautiful backyard. And give you a little nice 360. I'll turn you around in a second, but I'm not going to show you my front yard. We've got some nice perennials out there. I've got one little basket of flowers, but the backyard is really where the action is. We are very clearly south facing, and so it's beautiful back here, and the plants love it. So I'm going to flip you around and show you what I've got. Okay, I actually did a little bit of deadheading first, but here we are. So we've got a nice big built wood deck, which is gorgeous. And we'll start right here. Got a nice little colorful basket here. I could probably take the hanging bit off, but it just gives that corner a little bit of color. And then up here, we've got a nice tall privacy wall that's built in connection to the deck. And so the privacy wall is kind of 1, 2, 3 tiers. And so I filled these baskets that just sit right on top with petunias, and these are wave petunias. And I love wave petunias. I've always used them because they'll kind of cascade down. And so I just shoved those full. And I've got a few little marigolds up there too, because that should help out with some of the bugs, especially as like Jeffrey and I do quite a bit of sitting out here, and I find marigolds really help with mosquitoes and things like that. And then out on the corners of our deck, we've got 2 more potted flowers. Just go down there. And these I just bought from Costco, and Jeffrey picked out the color. They're really, really nice and striking magenta purple. I'm really happy with them. So the big flowers are dahlias, and so this is actually pretty color to the cardigan that I made for my niece, and I'm really happy with them. There's a little banana leaf in there, and then there's some petunias. They're like these little freckled guys, and then just some other beautiful flowers, which is wonderful. A nice big apple tree. We'll see what kind of apples we come up with. And then you'll see our raspberry patch, and it's really cool. What the owners before us did is they chopped off, there was pine trees. We've got pine trees over in that corner, and so there would have been symmetrical pine trees over here. They chopped it off and built this little play station, and it's just so cute, and I foresee it getting lots of use. But Jeffrey and I'll even just come and hang out here, and we'll swing over here, but clearly we're not swinging right now. So we've got a bunch of raspberry plants, and they started over there, and they're clearly spreading over this way. So on my to-do list for probably maybe the weekend, probably next week, is dig up the ones that are underneath this saucer, and I want to actually get them to spread along that back fence. So we'll see if I can do that. Raspberry plants are really, really pokey, so if I show you close, like a stalk, those are all spines and thorns, and so I'll get some nice thick leather gloves, and we'll see what we have to do. And then you see I've got some trees growing up over here, so just kind of come in with the clippers and take care of those, as well as the old raspberry canes that aren't going to produce this year. Raspberry canes always produce on the second year, so these guys that are just spreading up this year, they're not going to produce anything this year, so I'm not too worried about transplanting them along the fence. And you know what, if there's a year without raspberries, it's a year without raspberries. Over here we've got our little vegetable patch. So I'm really excited about this little patch. It's nice because it does have quite a bit of shade from the apple tree. So right over here I've got 2 rows of lettuce that are going to come up. I put in 3 rows of carrots, 1 normal carrots and then 2 rainbow carrots. And then 2 rows of beans. Jeffrey and I really enjoy eating beans, and one of the breeds of beans is supposed to be good for pickling. So I'm excited to see that. And then there's one stray strawberry plant over in the corner. But I'm leaving him because we'll see what he does. You never know. And you can see he's got some little strawberries coming. So that's exciting. So over here, this is our kind of back of the garage. And over here, it's really nice. We've got irises that you can see are just finishing up. And they were really beautiful this year. They're tall, tall, tall guys. So maybe I'll stake them next year. I don't know. And then I've got some peonies that are just coming on. Peonies are probably one of my favorite flowers. And they're this gorgeous, like, blush pink. And so I'm so thrilled for those to come. And then there's some clematis, and I love clematis. It's really nostalgic. Mom always had clematis in Fort St. John. And so when this came up, when I saw the trellis, I was like, I wonder what they've got there. And then when the clematis started growing up, I was like, oh, this is perfect. Mom would have loved it. So I'm really excited to have those 2 beautiful clematis plants. And my uncle, who's a landscaper, he said that clematis like to have cool roots. And so when this bush popped up, that was nice because it gives those roots a lot of shade. And actually, because of the pine trees, it stays pretty, like back in this corner over here, you can see we're in the shade right now. So it's very nice. And then this is the real biggie. So these raised beds were all already here, which is absolutely fabulous. You'll see I've got some volunteer onions. And then I've got a ton of strawberries. You'll see the red. That's not ready strawberries. Those are just leaves. But I've got a full bed of strawberries here. I've got a full bed of strawberries over there. And so right here we've got some leaf mulch that I put down this week. That really helps to keep the soil nice and cool and maintain the moisture. But there's some really nice strawberries, and you can tell they're coming on really well. And the leaf mulch actually also helps to keep any bugs from coming up through the soil and nibbling on the strawberries. So I'm really excited. I think we're gonna have a really good little crop, and probably end up making some jam, things like that. So, oh, that guy hasn't had much exposure to the sun. He looks interesting. It's totally white, but it feels like it's ready. That's interesting. I wonder if we'll have some different kinds of strawberries. Maybe some not red ones. I don't know. We shall see. So we've got strawberries over here, onions over there. And then I planted in here, I've got a zucchini plant and a bunch of tomatoes. I was probably a little overly ambitious with the tomatoes, but we'll see. I've got about 2 feet between each plant, so that should be lots of space. Lots of cherry tomatoes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 different breeds. One is Sweet Millions and the other one is Sugar Sun. Sun Sugar, something like that. And then this guy is a San Marzano tomato. It's either a San Marzano tomato or a Roma. And so he is all really happy. I planted all of these this week. And over here, got a few extra tomato plants that I'm going to post on Facebook Marketplace. Some more strawberry beds. This guy, like this strawberry bed's a little bit further behind, which is nice because it means we won't have all of our harvest all at once. And then a few more strawberries because strawberries will spread. And so I think that's just what happened is they spread from this bed into this bed, but you'll see it got some coming on there. And then I've got 1 butternut squash, and these guys are only supposed to get to 4 inches, like I think 4 to 6 inches. So that's little butternut squash, normal sized butternut squash, another tomato. So this is either San Marzano or Roma. I've got 1 kind here, 1 kind there, and then I think a volunteer squash, maybe a pumpkin. We'll see what happens. So yeah, that's my garden. Worked lots out here this week, mostly in the evenings because that's when we have some nice shade, but it's been really, really lovely. and I'll update you as things go along. Hope you all have a great week.